Hello, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Beyond the Art and our series, The Stories That Carry Us. I'm your host, Craig Beaumont Flynn, a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the Delaware Tribe of Indians. In each episode, we will discuss with various Native American artists, influencers, art leaders, and everyone in between their experiences, the communities they serve, and the translation and interpretation of the Native American art world today. Welcome to Beyond the Art. Today, we have Marca Cassity, a performance artist, musician, and therapist. Welcome to the show, Marca.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about your personal background and your cultural heritage and your story of how you're influenced as artistic work?
Oh my, how long do I have?
We got an hour.
Okay, so my name is Marca Cassity. My performance name is Marks Cassity. My Osage name is Hueduan, which is an eldest daughter name in the Eagle clan of Osage. And I'm an enrolled citizen of the Osage Nation. I was born in Ponca City, Oklahoma, grew up in the Osage Nation out on my great-grandmother's land, who was an original Latie of the Osage Nation, if people know what that means. And my great-great-grandfather was tribal council during the Reign of Terror, that we'll get into around, the history there of the Osage and this hopefully fabulous movie coming out, Killers of the Flower Moon, that a lot more people are going to be learning about Osages. So I grew up in that lineage. My grandfather, Mark, who I'm named for, was Osage congressman. And Marca Cassity, licensed marriage and family therapist and musician. And I go under the performance name Marks, and I put an X in my name in honor of gender diversity, which has existed all through history. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to shine some light in the decolonization of sexuality and gender. Some of that being my work as a therapist, some of that being a very personal journey, having grown up on the reservation as a tomboy. My gender expression as a kid, they called me tomboy, and that really I fit right in to that. That allowed me to run around in the dirt and wrestle cattle. Literally, I wrestled cattle. And as I grew up with cattle ranchers and riding motorcycles and all that, until, of course, I was born in 1967, and until 1973, the diagnostic journal for my very own field that I'm in as a therapist, homosexuality was a disorder until 1973 when the APA did away with that. So I grew up in that kind of, the ramifications of that, as well as religious trauma and those, I always try to tell people I'm not against Christianity. I want to be very clear about that. I'm against hate and the use, So I'm very fortunate. My parents are Episcopalian and very inclusive and wonderful. And so I get to spend time with them and that, and so as a tomboy on the reservation, but then went to be a piano major over at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater. And over there, I took some gender studies classes as well, women's studies classes called at the time, and where some kind of more radical lesbian feminist guest lecturers came to town. And I had already come out to myself, but coming out in the Bible Belt, kind of with these college classes, kind of opening my mind to what was, because we're talking about no mentorship, no social media.
Right.
I don't think we even had a gay lesbian, club of any type, even in college, So it was quite difficult, and we were in the height of the AIDS crisis when I came out in 1986, and so there was backlash from that, a lot of fear in the institutions and the adults around me who were colonized in their thinking. So it didn't go well for me. So I dropped out as a music major and ended up going to nursing school, nearly self-destructed for a little bit, and was, I was one of those kids that, this project I've done is, in honor of queer kids who are still struggling. I was one of those kids struggling, nearly died in that, and had some awakenings and stayed alive. Went to nursing school and started working in my community during the AIDS crisis as an emergency room nurse and home health care nurse. And but I kept playing music. I had a guitar was easier to carry around than
Was
a
it
piano.
your zone time that would take you there?
Well, I was playing other people's songs like Buffy St. Marie and Indigo Girls and Neil Young and, Joni Mitchell and people like that, or Ani DeFranco, these more like folky protest songs.
Right.
And I would take my guitar and learn those songs and then go play them at like AIDS fundraisers, like with Ginger Lamar introduced me one night at Angles, right? 7 foot tall drag queen. And here I'm this little dyke, this little butch lesbian with my little pounding on my guitar with these drag queens all around me. So I kept playing other people's music on guitar. But when I launched out of Oklahoma in 1997, working as a nurse in 95, I was downtown when the Oklahoma City bombing happened and ended up right there at the building as a first responder. So by 97, I was struggling with all this trauma of being queer, the trauma of being a first responder. And I jetted out of here and went to Colorado and ended up in Boulder in kind of the consciousness community there and started writing songs. I was 30. And this is when it all started coming that I could write songs, and ended up the radio show there and featuring female artists. And then that just expanded and songwriting expanded on guitar. And I decided to go to California to be a rock star and ended up being a psychotherapist.
That's a kind of a left or right direction.
And ended up with a master's of art in counseling, psychology, and trained at Native American Health Center of San Francisco, as well as Indian Country Child Trauma Center here at OU. But always music, I've been making these albums throughout this time of history where I'm also working in Native health and Two-Spirit health and LGBTQ health. And so in 2020, we were in lockdown. I was living in Portland, Oregon, working as a therapist. And I read the statistic that 33% of LGBTQ Native American youth attempted suicide in 2020. And that was out by Trevor Project, one study out from Trevor Project. And it was quite disturbing and quite also inspirational. I was living in lockdown, so I got a piano because I hadn't had a piano since I was a piano major and dropped out. And right after that, I saw this Radical Imagination grant from Indian Collective, and I wrote to them and said, hey, I want to respond to this statistic and write an album and maybe make a music video that makes a difference, and for youth, LGBTQ, Native American, LGBTQ Two-Spirit youth. But it ended up being this depth, singing and creating for my own young self, that 19-year-old who came out, and it's kind of a combination. It's been my own healing journey as well as...
So I was going to ask, was it part of your healing journey of telling your younger self of where you're at now?
Yeah, it was kind of unexpected. I kind of thought I would just come at it from a therapist vantage point or my own elder self now. I got called an elder a couple of years ago for the first time. And I was like, oh.
Blasphemy.
All right. I'll engage that. I'm 56 now, and I'm proud to be alive.
Hey, yeah, we've made it this far.
And so let me embrace that and see what I can do with that. So it's kind of my elder self singing to the younger self and younger people, parts work, as we call in therapy, And I've had a lot of great teachers and medicine people and spiritual teachers and therapists along my route who helped me keep going. So I love being that back to the community. But yeah, also to my inner younger self. So it has been quite the journey here as I created this album called 2S Sacred, Two-Spirit Sacred, and also this evolution into Marks, putting the X in my name, which is in honor of gender diversity that's been in history throughout all of time. Diving into I made a music video from this song called How Long, which is about a song of a kid who leaves the reservation knowing very familiar their grandmother's road, but now going off to the city because they've come out and there's hate speech flying at them. So they go into the city, into the clubs where, so here I am, my own self, singing to myself. The clubs I'm singing about are the clubs of the 80s, right? Which were a little bit like my church, Bronski Beat we talked about, and Madonna and Whitney Houston and Prince and Bowie and Modern Love, 1983. And so this started coming through the project as well, this kind of synth feeling, dance floor, but also native nuance, native lyric. Because I've been writing on guitar for such a long time, acoustic guitar. I evolved in piano and synthesizer because I was remembering being on those dance floors and that trying to decide if I want to stay alive or not. But at least I was dancing, right?
Yeah, you're taking out your zone. You're in like your own little trance.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I try to bring some of that in, paying homage also to Buffy St. Marie, who through her career, who just retired at 82 from touring, apparently. Oh, what a treasure she is. And how she, in 1964, was one of the first artists to bring in polyphonic, I think it's called synthesizer, into the music. And she experimented with electronic music throughout, while also being that amazing acoustic guitar folk singer, from back in the day. Like, so, some of her albums really inspired me in bringing in native nuance singing into this kind of synthy electronic vibe. So
how do you incorporate your cultural heritage into each of your songs? What is it inspired and motivates you? And where do you take the substance? As you mentioned, you kind of telling a story to yourself, your younger self, but culturally as an Osage citizen and growing up in the environment, what inspires you to bring that element into your songs?
Yeah, well, I'll say one part of that is just all the love and adventuring. I mean, to have a great-grandmother who was born in 1900 and lived through what we're going to see vividly depicted in Killers of the Flower Moon coming up, to live and grow up with her. She didn't talk directly about those traumas. It was indirect, right? But there was always this deep, deep pride that was instilled in me almost in an energetic way when she would talk about being Osage. And so it's more of a feeling.
Right.
And then my grandfather in leadership in the nation, he's the one who in 2006, we had our change in government from, into where all members of, if you have descendancy and can prove it, you can now be a voting member of the Osage Nation.
Right.
That was a big change. And his pride in that, like leadership and just my great-great-grandfather being tribal council during that reign of terror as well. So you can just feel there's a level of dignity and pride that runs through my family that I think, gives me endurance as a nurse in the AIDS crisis and ER nurse and as a writer. And as, it takes endurance to like show up to a blank slate of a piano.
Right.
And having received a radical imagination grant, you better do something, right? And it's been 2 years of really needing endurance to show up, to put this out and now to speak. People are like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, I'm not representing all Osages or all Two-Spirit people or all LGBT people. I'm just doing the best I can over here. Somebody who's lived experience and survival and working with others to, put out a message and some visuals through this music video I did that brought in community and depicts religious trauma and community healing. I'm just doing the best I can. Awashka is one of those words in Osage I love. I'll just do the best I can. So I think just drawing from all that, as well as I have powerful spirit guides and ancestors and transcestors that come through. I also believe that my collaboration with Indian Collective, those folks, that team, and Nick Tilson and all the folks who put that together, there's strong medicine that comes through, like what they're doing in the world and activism, climate change, and granting artists, and they believe in artists as change makers.
Correct, yeah.
And that comes through the feeling of that. I think I started realizing some of that guide was coming through too, but in collaboration with Osage Nation Foundation, who have funded me as well. They believe in me, and it's just lovely to have people believing you. That helps with that endurance, and especially native people who who am I to receive these funds? They've seen something, and I am in collaboration, and I hold honor there of what I do with that. Every single penny, has been towards this project for the decolonization of sexuality and gender. And in that also, I talked to some Osage people, like this word mihoge has come into the light in my life in the last couple of years. This is a word in Osage that depicts gender diversity. similar to other nations who have their own words for gender diversity, and people, two-spirit people, that term being coined in the 1990s, that's a newer word. We have these older words that shows me that gender diversity and two-spirit and queer people have always existed.
Correct.
It's just the way we express it is what's creative. People freak out with they, them pronouns and stuff like that. It's just a new way of expressing a very old thing. So I'm trying to bring attention to that this is not a fad, this gender diversity.
It's not a passing thing. It's something that's been around. It's not, and it was here prior to colonization. And I think the significance and importance of two-spirit individuals prior to that were very important factors within those communities.
Yes, well, we can see Europeans themselves, over 130 tribes in this, what we call the United States now, had Europeans were writing in a derogatory manner, but they were writing about gender diversity and same-sex couples and queerness within over 130 tribal societies upon first contact. And for years, our academics and leaders used that derogatory language to say, hey, we were here, we were being, genocided our cultural ways, just like many other cultural ways, but we were here. And until 1990, when our great leaders up in Winnipeg changed that in their gatherings to, let's use a word two-spirit instead of that derogatory language. So now we're in that era of that great leadership, So, yeah. So I'll get back to I believe that lineage comes, I had many awakenings over the last 2 years, 4:00 in the morning, waking up and being given song ideas, lyrics, bridges, tunes, and sometimes feeling like, okay, am I losing it over here?
Who's talking to me?
But it was really powerful how that, and then I was reading, the incredible Joy Harjo talks about opening the dimensions, and how she works with that in her lineage. I think her grandmother she speaks of, and as artists. And so I, moved with being more open to that on this. And sometimes I say, why am I being woken up at 4 a.m.? And it's like, well, this is when you're quiet.
Right.
This is the only time, once you're awake, forget it.
You're probably more receptive to what's being fed you.
Yeah. So I've made friends with 4 a.m. over the last couple of years.
So what is your artistic process as a musician and performance artist? Like you said, if these visions or these spirits of our ancestors come to you and kind of give you thoughts and ideas and of where to take the substance to write a song or tell a story in a musical tone, what is your process to kind of decipher that? And you just get your guitar, you just get your piano and just let it happen? Or
great question. I do kind of, I think one of the ways that I did a lot of healing once I left Oklahoma, with quite a lot of PTSD, was I went into consciousness communities and started singing, similar to what I'd sung in Native American church space, very, repetitive, trancey, through the night type of, fire ceremony that's so powerful in those spaces, right? And then I found that in more Eastern thought communities. So I started doing a lot of chanting, like hours and hours, and also contemplation of spirituality and spiritual ideas of all one consciousness and stuff. And that was kind of my, I could say now I look back and go, I think that was my outpatient therapy, along with some inpatient like EMDR work with some therapists and some medicine circles, from South America. I was in a community of Brazilians and Ecuadorians and working with ayahuasca, which is, to me, the southern cousin or sister to peyote church,
Correct.
So I had a lot of healing in those spaces, and there's tremendous amount of singing Quechua and these indigenous, and then the Brazilians in Santo Daime, repetitive through the night, singing beautiful songs in Portuguese and beautiful songs about the stars. And this is Yoruba from Africa brought to, South America, the slaves who were forced there, coming into, the syncretic religions and into the indigenous, influence of ayahuasca that lives in the South. And it's just incredible, to be brought in and have healing in those spaces. including one Ecuadorian shaman who came to me and said, I've seen your lineage and your trauma, and I've done some healing there. I want you to, or what his medicine coming through. I want you to return to your people and be yourself and sing and be you. And it's good for you and it's good for them.
It's a powerful message.
And this is in California.
Wow.
And I'm like, I kind of like it in California. Like I kind of got beat up over there in Oklahoma.
Right.
But I'm sitting here with you today in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, because I listened to that teacher, and there's been, a journey there to, again, engage and respect my own lineage and my own journey to return home and try and make a difference,
I get that completely.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be sitting here.
That comes to me when I sit down at a guitar or piano and I start to tool around and sing. I bring in that kind of meditative stuff, and then here come lyrics trying to apply the teachings that my teachers tell me and stuff. But yeah, I hear you saying you can relate, that you didn't think you'd be here.
Right.
But here you are.
Here I am.
Yeah, here we are.
It feels like home, which is
yes.
It's the first day I got here, it felt like home. I never questioned it. I never second guessed it. It's just a natural feeling.
Yes.
And an ease, I guess, that came over me.
Yeah.
That didn't exist elsewhere.
Well, that's the thing about the land and the lineage and the current incarnation we're in, with the current communities we're in, and the current situation we're in. That's only part of the story.
Right.
Right. So if we can find each other, and, I do feel like I have a relationship with the land here. Like I can feel it. It also sings to me and soothes me and gives me, since I was a tomboy out on the reservation running around, I used to have a cassette recorder, and I'd watch the lightning, and then I'd hit record because I knew the thunder would come behind it. And those are my earliest recordings, right?
Is that album number 2?
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, we definitely have a lightning theme in this current album, in that when I was about 20, I was again in another lightning storm, contemplating whether I should be alive or dead, because I'd been told by those around me that I was an abomination. I had dropped out of music school. I was quite lost, quite self-destructive, and was, having suicidal pacts with other people and high risk-taking behaviors. And I got the house I was leaning next to one night got struck by lightning and knocked me into the yard down in Southside Oklahoma City. And looking up in this lightning-filled night sky, and I hear this voice come through and say, "Stop killing yourself. You're here for a reason." And that came through in a song on this project. The song's called How Long? And the final part of it is, "Rise up, child, you're here for a reason." The thunder and the lightning is here to help you. So rise up. So we have a lightning theme in this current project.
Intertwined.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you've done, that is actually a music video that I've seen that's out. Have you put a music video to any other songs that are going to be on the album?
Not yet. That music video was another project from the heart. We filmed when I was living in Portland at the time. So the Portland All Nations Canoe family came. We had 2 locations, one at this place called the Old Church Venue, which is a beautiful old church with stained glass. I put a cast and a crew together. I produced this under a really tight budget. We have Kamari Siraj came in, who's House of Ada, who's a Vogue dancer, and came and did some movement and dance, depicting that 80s kind of vibe. Right. And I also flew home to Oklahoma to film contemporary Two-Spirit Native people here to place in the music video as well, in honor of.
Well, it's exceptionally beautiful.
Oh,
video.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to film it in Oklahoma, but we were still in some COVID and we had to test and all the things. So I decided to just bring in individual portraits of Two-Spirit people in Oklahoma. And in the journey of the months of doing that, I dropped in here again in Oklahoma and in Tulsa with all the queer community and the Native community, Native art community, Tulsa Arts Fellowship, everything that's going on here. And now I live here. I mean, it's almost like that brought me home.
Right.
But that video was a deep labor of love. And it took me, it was many, many moving parts. And so right now I'm like, I'll let that one be the one for the project. I'm open to creating more video over the coming days, but we're going to have a couple of lyric videos up so people can sing along in
Fantastic.
karaoke style. But my my Osage grandmother had I think it's a 1964 Buick LeSabre that my father just refurbished. It's over near Ponca where they live out there on the res. And it's kind of a teal turquoise blue. And I have this song called Fly Away.
Uh-huh.
And I really want to go shoot a video in my Osage great grandmother's car. So maybe coming up this year, anybody out there want to join me in making a music video?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Count me in. Absolutely.
We'll drive that thing around and you can fit 14 people in it.
There you go.
We can fit 14 two-spirit people in that and drive around and sing Fly Away.
So is there a collective story, a message you're trying to project from this album? Is it based on the names of the songs or just collectively?
Yeah, well, it started as, there's a song called To Us Sacred, and it's a love song to the ancestors and the transcestors. And my vocal coach, Wolf Carr, who's amazing in Portland, has been just such an ally, native ally all along on this. At one point I was like, this song is a prayer song in honor, of two-spirit ancestors, transcestors, but it feels so spiritual. I don't know. And he's like, well, sing it like Prince. And I was like, what? No, I can't do that. And he's like, yeah, just try it. So from that, we brought in the, Prince, the way he used numbers and I read his pages for his autobiography that didn't get written, but his memoir. And so To Us Sacred, I brought the 2 and the S in sacred and tried to sing that like Prince, and it came out to be whatever it is, which I love. It's fun to sing and stuff. But that was kind of the beginning point of let's begin with prayer. Let's begin the ceremony of this material. And then I sat around with the first 2 Eurythmics albums, which are, if I was going to be played, that's game of, if you're going to be on a deserted island with only one album, what would it be? It would be, okay, I want 2 albums. The first 2 albums of Eurythmics and Annie Lennox in the 1980s, So I sat around with that a lot on my guitar, bringing that vibe in because that's what helped me stay alive back in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. Annie Lennox at the Grammys in drag. For Best New, she's Sweet Dreams. She came out and sang in drag and stayed in drag to the point where people backstage were like, they couldn't find Annie Lennox.
Right.
But as a 14-year-old watching that on television, she signaled me around gender diversity that it was okay, this person, right? So hanging out a lot with that. And so the songs just kind of came in about, yes, gender and sexuality, but my own stories and navigating that. But also some other songs. There's a song called Thunderbird I'm quite proud of that depicts more around climate change. Mm-hmm. And somewhere itself doesn't, there's not, I'm singing as a two-spirit person, I'm a whole gay person, but there's no there's like lyrics throughout the album that are specific to being two-sacred and a returning of two-spiritedness. But also these other things came through, which I think is true for those of us that are this thing, this gender diverse thing, whatever you want to call it, in your own words. We have, we're here. I always say when we return the well-being of our two-spirit people, it's not just for the two-spirit people, it's for the well-being of all of our tribal societies. Like that's a return of something, decolonization or land back manifesto around kinship that, so some other themes were coming through as I was being woken up at 4 a.m., Thunderbird. And there's a beautiful song I went through kind of a post-apocalyptic divorce at one point, which grows us all when we do that, right? Mm-hmm. But had, kind of given up on, I was told when I came out in the 80s that if I was choosing to be gay, that I would never have love and I would always suffer if I was choosing that. And then here's me as a kid going, I'm not choosing this. This is who I am.
Right.
But kind of always believing that curse through time. Mm-hmm. And, here in life with all this work, finally kind of getting out of that bad medicine to the place where I met my wife, who's incredible. We're going 9 years strong now.
Wow. Congrats.
And that's the longest ever in a relationship. So I feel like I've uplifted through that. So there is a song to her called The Way You Move, but it's also got native nuance singing to it around the medicine of clearing that kind of hex or bad medicine that people put on you in our own tribal society is very sad. That lateral violence continues.
Tell me about the song Somewhere.
Yeah, so it's partly honor to the fire ceremony of Peyote Church, the American Church. I love watching. It's healing for me when I watch the fire keepers through the night in that ceremony. So when I was in COVID, I'd rented this big house in Portland because I was going to have like living room concerts and dinner parties. And I rented it the month that we went into lockdown.
Jeez.
We moved in and went right into lockdown. So I'm in this big house with this big stairwell, and in that, and being a therapist online to people and witnessing all the, fear people were in from lockdown, not knowing what it was and
or what to do and what's next.
Yeah. And then the political situation we were in at the same time. And so I was remembering my Native ancestors and the endurance that they had through our own Osage Trail of Tears, these other, with honor to the, of course, Cherokee folks like that. Many tribes had their own version of that. And the endurance of noticing, I can feel it when I talk about it. It's like, what they lived through. And so here I am in lockdown being really whiny in my stairwell with my guitar. And so just remembering that endurance and that to keep going. And then the vigil of the fire keeping, and that, I knew we were going to be in this for some time. So the lines are, this winter fire becomes a spring fire, becomes a summer fire, becomes an autumn fire. And it's just that circular singing of endurance through holding vigil in the fire, right? That we would have to do through this difficult thing of this pandemic. And also thinking of the Two-Spirit youth, the LGBTQ youth who are still suffering, who are in their, in their own families and nations with colonization continuing around sexuality and gender, thinking of them, singing. And just, somewhere in the darkness is my will to live, my heritage. Those are the lines. And it's really fun to sing that. So it's dark and light. It's like, I'm like, let's grieve and dance all at the same time, because we've got some synth vibe going there too. And you can hear it, it's been out since Indigenous Peoples Day, October 9th. So Native American Day in Tulsa.
And then the album releases November 5th.
Yes.
And what's the name of the album?
To Us Sacred.
To Us Sacred. So will you be touring? Will you be doing any gigs promoting the album?
Yeah. What we're doing right now is, I didn't realize, I think, when I started this project that where it would evolve to going. So there's like a lot of interest. I'm sitting here talking to you, and there's a lot of interest that I'm getting around the country. People want to talk to me as a therapist and a performer, like that they read about the songs and the, the statistics. And so here I am, it's doing a dual role in singing and talking. And so we're just trying to get through the first, in the days here of Spotify and 24-hour news cycle, it's hard to break in and get messages out. So we're working really hard to get the message out, because for me, what helped me stay alive as a kid was any visibility or representation that landed for me, like Annie Lennox at the 1980 Grammys, helped me.
Right. So, is that connection? There's someone out there that is like me in essence.
Yeah. So anywhere we can get that to, we're putting our heart, soul, money, resources, everything into getting the message out. And that's what I'm doing right now, as I'm also about to bring and release the whole album. And then my wife, Kate, who's my project manager and like is extraordinaire, is like, okay, this has been 2 years of 24/7. Like maybe at the end of the year, we can just like chill out and see what we have and see where we go. Of course, I'm putting together an amazing band for November 5th of local Tulsa music. The music scene here in Tulsa is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Jordan Hill from King Cabbage will be joining me, and some other really amazing. We're going to create a vibe over at Park Grove Community Center in West Tulsa for my album release on a Sunday evening over there, November 5th. And, so this is the first incarnation of bringing this music live into the world. And I've also had some people reach out. The National LGBT Task Force has asked me to maybe do something in January, around gender diversity. And Brooklyn Americana and during New York City Pride has reached out for June of 2024. So there's some opportunities to go out and bring this into the world. And
fantastic.
First, we're just trying to get an album release. And
baby steps.
Yeah. And really the closing part of this ceremony, which opened with me asking to be a radical imagination artist. And, so I feel like Native American Heritage Month, November, will be the closure of this part of creating and releasing this album over 2 years. So here we are.
Yay. So you mentioned some collaboration. So are you going to continue to collaborate as you move forward in releasing this album and telling your story through music? So will you be collaborating with other artists throughout the journey?
Yeah, that's always been how I've always have. So yes, it always feels better when, I'm very willing to strap that guitar on my back and go out. I'm very able. I've gone all across America and other places like with that guitar, But boy, it feels better when I'm in the car with somebody else, somebody I believe in. I have, an amazing community. When I was first living in Boulder, we started a collective called Women from Mars, and it's just great songwriters around the country. Ended up with a radio show, and it just, I guess that's part of me. I don't know. Is that my Native heritage? I don't know. Like, I like being in collective. I like being in community. So, so collaboration, and also the Tulsa music scene, I love to collaborate with other Native artists as well as just other artists, like allies. There's amazing allies to Native people here. We need to uplift them and empower them.
Absolutely.
Sometimes people get worried about, can I come to a Native show? Can I play music in a Native show? Like, empowering our allies. We're all in this together. So being good relatives in that way,
Right. Helping one another in the community. Have you seen a lot of challenges that you faced as a indigenous Native American and Two-Spirit artist?
Yeah. Well, one thing is around, again, I really try to let people know I'm not representing all Osages, all Mejoge, all LGBT people, all, because we have within our marginalized communities this thing called lateral violence. It's some of the most heartbreaking when from within your own family, your own community, this, whatever happens for people, miscommunications or jealousy or the thinking of who are you, this out-ending each other, I'm a white passing individual. I have heritage from French, German, English, Irish, last name Cassity. But I grew up and was born right here on the Osage Reservation. And so sometimes people within their own communities can be like, who are you to think that you, and so I think it's very important as a white passing individual to try to utilize my education, my platform, and my privilege to open and make space for others who have more discrimination that I cannot understand as a white passing person, And within that, it starts to get tricky when you start to go into capitalism and promoting yourself and publicity. And I just would hope that we can all take a breath and be kind to each other and support one another, because that's one of the largest challenges is people coming at you from within your own.
True.
It's painful, hurts.
And I've been on that receiving end as well. It's like, well, why are you doing a show about Native American artists? You don't look Native American. It's like, well, what am I supposed to look like? It's just like there's this wide spectrum, like the 574 recognized tribes throughout this continent. We all don't look alike. So,
I say if we as white passing Native folks, assimilation genocide is a construct of the U.S. government, which is to, assimilate people into white culture so that they stop talking about being Native.
Right.
And if I don't stand in my lineage and my heritage, first of all, I don't feel good. It hurts me spiritually in my own individual being. And second of all, I'm taking part in assimilation genocide. if I don't stand in who I am. But I also need to be able to have a conversation about discrimination against Black, Indigenous people of color, you know? So I do the best I can. I'll wash car with that. And, you know, I got a lot of amazing folks around me, you know, warrior people, spirit warrior people around me, just saying, keep it high, keep going. This is part of it. When you start to do good work in the world and you start to be a public figure, this is just part of it. Like, be strong, keep going, and take in those blessings around you. Don't, you know, I'm somebody with PTSD who grew up in a lot of violence, and I'm a fighter.
Sing louder.
I've had to come out of that, like, physical, violence. I was gay bashed by 5 white supremacist men, in Oklahoma City in a parking lot outside a gay bar, and I'm ready to fight, but I can't do that. I'm a therapist and an elder, and so I'll try to sing
about it. Yep.
Let's sing some powerful words and have some talks like this about lateral violence and how we need to curb that in our communities when we can. Yeah.
So you mentioned Annie Lennox, which I adored during that time and still do. Are there any other particular artists, both within and outside the Native community, that you look to or are influenced?
Yes. Well, Emily Wells is an amazing artist who lives in Philadelphia, has been in New York for a long time before Philly, who I met in California, who she's evolved. I toured with her a long time ago when we were just kids with acoustic guitars, touring up and down the West Coast. But she more recently has developed, it's where I kind of get her tagline of "Let's grieve and dance" at the same time, because she brings in synth influence, string influence, music about, one of her songs is "Come on Doom, Let's Party." And so she pays homage to a lot of artists through the AIDS crisis in the 80s, and she juxtaposes that with climate change and then sings about it in this trancey, synthy way that just is mind-blowing. I saw her a few years. My wife is from France, and we were in Paris, and I saw a poster with Emily Wells on it, and I went, and I was like, whoa, like, because she has visuals on stage showing climate change and AIDS crisis, like ACT UP activists and stuff. It's just mind-blowing. So I would say Emily Wells is a huge influence in grief dance music, and as well as kind of blanking.
Annie Lennox.
You. Well, yeah, those two. I mean, and then as I've said, Becky St. Marie, just the way she brings in the synth over the rock, and then the native singing. She, prides herself that she has a couple of songs where she brings in different types of native singing, the influences, and sings it that way herself, So really cool. And then Eulalie, I mean, Pirifay, and Eulalie, Pirifay's incarnations of Eulalie over time, from the 90s, they sang on an Indigo Girls album is how I discovered them. And the 3 women singing, and creating, again, influence from traditional singing, but Pirifay bringing in her own version of that and now into the jazz world. Just incredible, like what she does. On a gender level, I'll say Christine and the Queens, this incredible French artist who has transitioned in gender expression and sings about that transition. And again, in the pop dance world, really, really incredible artists, as well as Jean Adet is another French artist who sings a song called Mutate. So it's like the spiritual mutating through dance and Vogue dancing and this type of thing. So, yeah.
So are you still being awoken at 4 a.m.? Are there songs and inspirations to motivate you to continue?
Yes. What's coming now is I'm being told as I show up for interviews and, I'm in the public more than I thought maybe this album might, it's an evolution here of talking and bringing forth stuff. It's vulnerable. It gets shaky, and also just performance to make an album and be internal for 2 years with it, to bring it out to the world.
True.
And be on a stage and, with things like Instagram Live and things like that, where people are like, suddenly I'm like, oh, am I singing to everyone, like to your whole platform right now? Like, I didn't know that. You gotta let me know. Yeah. So now I'm being woken up at 4 a.m. being told, just keep going. You're evolving yourself as being able to speak and sing and bringing a ceremonial vibe through vocals. It's like, don't sweat it.
Right,
We've got you. Everything that came into creating this material, we've got you on stage. We've got you as you speak, as long as I do my prayers and I smoke off and I have my people who pray with me in that way, it's like, okay, just got to keep going and evolving and being it's different being, social media. I feel for kids growing up right now.
Yeah.
Who they're just hanging out and suddenly are on Snapchat, and they don't even know it. Like, I didn't grow up in that. There's a lot of vulnerability to that, a lot of concerns there, but I'm feeling it too as an artist. So yay, let's put it out. And also it's vulnerable. So keep going. Just 4 a.m. Keep going. Yeah, it's going to be all right.
So what's next for you as Marca, the therapist, and also the musician, and Mark's the performance artist?
Yeah.
What's next?
Like I said, I'm going to keep showing up every day, asking when I know to ask out loud, please help me, and to, make my offerings and to show up with people who are, help me stay the course and keep talking and singing. And, I had great teachers, medicine people tell me before, there's no difference between you being a therapist and you being a singer. It's all the same thing. It's all the same medicine. So just keep doing that. And it's an interesting journey, I'll tell you, so, but I know if I stay in that current and in that flow, it'll just keep flowing, and I trust that. So I don't have to answer your question. I'm a therapist in 3 states now: California, Oregon, and Oklahoma. And, I aspire to work with other therapists who maybe want to learn more about supporting LGBTQ people, especially in Oklahoma. I think that's very important. We have a lot of therapists who are allies who want to help Black, Indigenous people of color and LGBTQ people, and they are not of those communities, but they are allies, and they get nervous about how to support, and they're in the majority for mental health. And I would love to do a little bit of supporting those folks and how to be good, how to be good therapists in that way as allies, and put themselves out there as that.
True.
Because there's such a need. And I'll just keep showing up at Tulsa Pride, and spoke at the trans march earlier this year, and just trying to use my lived experience and my education and my capacity for help anywhere I can,
So is there a second album floating around?
Yes.
It's
being written.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah, and there's some collaboration going already with some Tulsa musicians,
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's more about those themes of lateral violence and heart and love and, heartbreak more than more of a platform for two-spiritedness. But I am a two-spirit person, so I'll keep that energy coming through. But yeah, always more music coming.
Wonderful. Well, we'll keep a lookout for that. So is the album's being released November 5th. Will be streaming. How will people be able to access it? Yeah,
well, the best place is to go to my website, which is markscassity.com, MarksCassity, markscassity.com. And that will lead you to all the platforms and all the everything, the music video, all the stuff there. So yeah, please join me. Park Grove Creative Community out in West Tulsa. An amazing creative community center. It's an old church and I've been told the owner is an old deadhead who just wants to foster creativity in the community. And there's these amazing folks over there making that happen. And you can come out over there and come to community choir, even if you don't sing. They've got all these, amazing. I taught a trauma-informed songwriting class over there. Oh, wow. Just really cool stuff going over at Park Grove. So that's why we're going to do that in that space November 5th, an old church space. So we're going to sing ceremony in there of the medicine of, healing religious trauma and colonization and in that space. So come out November 5th.
Fantastic. And maybe, next year we'll have a second Two-Spirit Festival here in Tulsa.
Yeah, we have plenty of Two-Spirit artists and people interested from around the country. So that'd be great. Twisted Arts has been such a great ally in bringing that into being. So yeah, let's do it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Marca. I thoroughly appreciate it. My heartfelt gratitude to you and much congratulations and success.
Thank you. Wewina.
All right.